Welcome to Karma Chronicles. Please like the video and subscribe. Let's begin.
It was 2:47 p.m. on a Tuesday, and I was at my desk, buried in a mountain of paperwork, when my phone buzzed. Ryan. I blinked, not expecting anything from him, let alone a text. He wasn't exactly the type to check in. I opened the message. Sold your old car for $8K. Some guy on Craigslist. Done you a favor, honestly. That thing was a rust bucket. Be thankful. My jaw tightened. I stared at the screen, trying to make sense of what I'd just read. Sold my old car. He'd sold it. The one I had kept for company use, the one I had barely used in months but still considered mine. I was sitting in a sleek, high-rise office with a killer view of the city, the kind of place where people like me, people who'd built something from the ground up, belonged. But right then, the view didn't matter. It didn't change the fact that my brother had sold a car that wasn't his to sell. I wanted to scream. I wanted to ask, "What the hell were you thinking?" Instead, I exhaled, grabbed my phone, and checked the family group chat. Ryan. Finally got rid of that rust bucket. No more headaches for Carly. Mom. So proud of you, Ryan. You're such a good brother for helping Carly out. Dad. You did the right thing, son. Carly can buy a new car. No big deal. My stomach dropped. I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Here they were, congratulating him like he'd just won a gold medal. I typed a single word into the group chat. Noted. Almost immediately, my phone buzzed again with more messages. Ryan was texting, asking if I was happy, if I was relieved to be rid of the car. I gritted my teeth, knowing this wasn't over. I couldn't just let it slide, but I also knew I needed to focus. There were real projects in front of me, deals that would determine the next quarter. I'd deal with Ryan later, but even then, a gnawing frustration stuck with me. I could already feel it, the way my family had always seen me, like I needed saving, like I wasn't capable of handling my own damn life. Maybe they thought the car was just some old thing, but to me, it was a symbol. It was a company asset, my career, and they didn't get that. Ryan especially, he'd always treated me like I didn't know what I was doing. I couldn't help it. I typed out another message to Ryan. Let's talk tomorrow, in person. His reply was almost immediate. Busy tomorrow, but sure, we can talk then. I rolled my eyes. He might be busy, but he was going to make time. He'd have to, because this wasn't just about a car. It was about everything else. The way they saw me, the way they always saw me as the little sister who needed help. That shit needed to end. And soon. I hadn't even put my phone down yet when there was a knock at the door. Sam, my assistant, stepped in, looking a little out of breath. "Carly, we've got a situation," she said, her voice tight with urgency. I straightened up in my chair, already bracing myself for bad news. "What's happened?" Sam hesitated for a second. "The company car. It's been tracked to a residential area. I don't know what's going on, but it's not where it should be." My stomach dropped. Not where it should be. I could already feel the weight of something going wrong. "What kind of residential area?" "Quiet neighborhood. I pulled the GPS data. It's showing an address in neighborhood name, which..." Sam trailed off, knowing that I'd recognize the name. "Where Ryan lives?" I finished for her, my voice flat. Of course it was. Sam nodded. "Yeah, I'm running more checks now, but I thought you should know." I leaned back in my chair, trying to steady my breathing. Of course he sold it. I shouldn't have been surprised, but I still wasn't prepared to hear it. "Get me a full report. I need every detail, every document, and don't involve the police. Not yet." She nodded and went back to her computer without saying another word. But I couldn't stop thinking about it. My brother had sold my company car, a high-security, custom-modified vehicle that wasn't just a car, it was part of our infrastructure, part of my work. I was trying to push away the frustration when Sam came back with the report in hand, her face serious. "Okay, it's worse than I thought." "Worse," I snapped, already feeling my pulse quicken. The car was sold to someone named Marcus. The whole transaction was done in a McDonald's parking lot nearby. Cash. No documentation except what's on the GPS. I could feel my chest tightening. Marcus. A random guy who probably had no idea what he was getting into. "How much?" $8,000, Sam replied. "That's what Ryan sold it for." 8,000. I closed my eyes for a second. Ryan had sold it for a fraction of its worth, way less than what it was actually worth. But it wasn't just the money. It was the recklessness, the betrayal. I stood up, pacing the room. Get me all the security documents related to the vehicle. I need everything. What was modified, the GPS history, the insurance, everything. I was trying to stay calm, but I could feel the anger building, crawling up my neck. Sam left without another word, and I was left with the crushing realization that my brother had done something far worse than just selling an old car. He had undermined everything I had worked for. He hadn't just stolen a vehicle. He'd stolen something far more important, the trust I had hoped I could still have in my family. I grabbed my phone and called Sarah, my attorney. She picked up on the first ring. "Carly, what's going on?" "Ryan sold my company car to some guy named Marcus, and I'm guessing it wasn't even his to sell." My words came out sharp, each one a punch I couldn't hold back. Sarah was quiet for a second, and then she asked, "The car was a company asset, right?" "Yeah, it's worth over 100 grand. It's custom, secured, all that. But Ryan just sold it for 8,000 bucks to some random dude. Cash transaction. It's a mess." "Okay." She paused again, and I could hear her taking a deep breath. "What Ryan did is theft, Carly. Even if he didn't know the full value of the car, it doesn't matter. He still took something that didn't belong to him and sold it without permission. You have grounds to press charges, but—" "I'm not sure yet," I interrupted, my voice tense. "I don't want to destroy him, but I also don't know how to let this slide. It's serious, Sarah. I'm talking about a company asset, part of our security infrastructure. This is a huge breach." "I get it," she said. "You have a few options. You could press charges, you could negotiate, maybe get the car back and have him pay restitution. Or you could let it go. But whatever you decide, it's going to have consequences." The weight of those words hit me hard. Consequences. My brother had no idea what he'd just done, but I was starting to understand it more clearly. This wasn't just a matter of a car, it was about respect. About him treating me like I didn't have the right to make my own decisions, even after everything I'd built. I couldn't let this slide. "Thanks, Sarah. I'll let you know what I decide." I hung up and sat back down at my desk, my fingers still gripping the phone. My mind was racing, trying to sort through the mess Ryan had created. Part of me wanted to tear into him, to make him feel the weight of what he'd done. But another part of me, the part that still cared about him, no matter how much he pissed me off, was hesitating. What if pressing charges destroyed him? It was a decision I wasn't ready to make yet. But one thing was clear. This wasn't over, and it wasn't going away anytime soon. I needed to clear my head, but there was no time. My phone buzzed again, the screen lighting up with the family group chat. I hadn't checked it in a while, but I already knew what was coming. Sure enough, the conversation had exploded. Ryan had kicked things off with a message that made my blood boil. "Car's gone. Great deal for Carly. I don't know why she kept that junk around so long. Someone was going to buy it anyway." I stared at it for a few seconds, a mixture of disbelief and rage curling in my stomach. The audacity, junk. Great deal for Carly. Then came my mom's reply, and I swear, if she had been standing in front of me, I might have snapped. "You should be thankful, Carly. Ryan was just looking out for you. That car was a pain. Now you don't have to deal with it anymore." And there it was, the reason I always felt like I had to prove myself to them. They never saw the work behind my success. They never saw me managing everything. My dad chimed in next. "Ryan did the right thing. That car was an embarrassment to the family. You should just be grateful it's gone." An embarrassment. I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. I spent years building this career from scratch, and all they could see was an old car. I typed out a quick reply to the group chat, my fingers stiff with frustration. Noted. I hit send before I could second-guess myself, but the message didn't make me feel better. It just felt like another line in the sand, another reminder that my family, despite all the things I'd accomplished, still thought I needed fixing. I set my phone down and paced the room, trying to keep it together. I called Sarah again, hoping for some clarity, but I already knew the situation was getting worse. "Hey, Carly, everything okay?" Not even close. I leaned back in my chair, trying to breathe through the tightness in my chest. "My family's acting like I should be grateful Ryan sold the car. They don't get it, Sarah. They think I'm just a mess who can't handle things on her own." There was a pause, a slight crackle in the silence. "You don't have to explain it to me. You already know what you need to do." "Yeah, I know." I rubbed my forehead, trying to focus. "I need to talk to Ryan, but it's like, they think this is no big deal, that it's just a car." "Your brother made a mistake, Carly," Sarah said, her voice soft but firm. a big one, and so did your parents by downplaying it. But you can't change them. You can only control how you handle it from here. I let her words sink in. I wasn't going to fix my family's perception of me with one conversation. I'd spent years fighting that battle, and right now the battle was with Ryan. I hung up and stared at the phone again. I couldn't put it off any longer. I needed to face him. I typed a message to Ryan. We need to meet in person to talk about what you did. I wasn't looking for a fight, not exactly. But I knew this conversation wouldn't be a walk in the park. He replied almost immediately, his tone dismissive as usual. Busy, can't meet until tomorrow. Same time. I exhaled sharply, already feeling that familiar knot in my stomach. Same time. He was treating it like nothing, like we were just two siblings talking about a trivial inconvenience. And I realized, maybe for the first time, how far removed my family was from understanding the weight of what I did, or what they had done to me. Tomorrow. I couldn't put it off any longer. I took a deep breath, gathering my thoughts, trying to center myself before what was going to be a difficult conversation. I didn't want to walk into that meeting full of rage, but it was hard not to feel it. Every single time I thought I was making progress, it felt like my family was there, pushing me back into that box they'd always seen me in. The struggling daughter, the one who needed their help, their intervention. Even now, they couldn't see how hard I'd fought to get where I was. They couldn't see me as anything more than the girl who couldn't manage her own life. But this was different. I was different. I wasn't going to back down. Tomorrow, I'd make Ryan see what he'd done. And maybe, just maybe, I'd make my family understand that I wasn't the little sister they thought I was anymore. I didn't need saving, but I sure as hell needed them to respect me. The next morning, Sam walked into my office with a thick report in her hands. I could tell by her face that the news wasn't getting better. She placed the file on my desk and sat down, avoiding my eyes. I didn't even have to ask. I just opened the report. It didn't take long to find the part that hit me the hardest. Ryan had disabled the car's main tracking system. But the backup systems, the ones I'd put in place specifically for something like this, had caught it. They'd alerted the company within minutes of the car being moved. It was like something out of a nightmare, but here it was in black and white. I could feel the heat rising in my chest as I read through the technical details. The car wasn't just some regular vehicle, it was worth over $100,000, custom modified with all kinds of high-tech security features. It wasn't just about getting a car back. This was about protecting our company infrastructure. How did he even know how to disable the tracker? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. I didn't want Sam to see how angry I was, but it was hard not to. I think he learned it from somewhere, Sam said, her voice quiet. Maybe someone told him how. But Carly, there's more. I raised an eyebrow, already dreading what was coming next. The backup system caught it, she said, flipping through the report until she found the page she was looking for. But by then, Ryan had already transferred the car to the buyer. The transaction was done in cash. I leaned back in my chair, rubbing my temples. I couldn't believe it. It wasn't just the theft. It was the calculation. He knew what he was doing. And somehow, he thought he'd get away with it without anyone finding out. All right, I said, trying to control my rising frustration. Get me all the documentation on the car. Everything. I want a full report on what was done to it, how it was modified, who authorized the changes. I also need all the legal stuff, insurance, security protocols, everything. Sam nodded and stood up. I'll get on it right now. Do you want me to contact the authorities? I shook my head. Not yet. Let's not get the police involved just yet. But start preparing the legal documents, Sam. We're going to need them if we're going after Ryan. Once Sam left, I sat in the silence of my office, staring out the window. The city stretched out below me, but my mind was back with the car, back with Ryan, back with the betrayal. This was no longer just about him selling a vehicle. It was about him undermining everything I'd worked for. And now, I had to decide what to do. I couldn't let him get away with this. Not only had he stolen from the company, but he'd put everything I'd built at risk. And if I didn't do something now, I knew this kind of behavior would never stop. But at the same time, I couldn't ignore the fact that pressing charges would mean a serious fallout with my family. I dialed Sarah's number again, my mind already running through the options. Carly, she said when she picked up, what's your gut telling you? I took a deep breath. This is bigger than I thought. Ryan disabled the tracker, sold the car for less than it was worth, and just walked away. It's not just theft, Sarah. It's a breach of security. This car was tied into our whole system. I'm looking at the paperwork you sent over. What Ryan did is felony theft. But you know the stakes. If you press charges, it could damage everything. It could tear apart your family. That's something you need to be prepared for. The words felt like a punch. I know, but I can't just let it go. Not this time. He'll never learn his lesson if I do. She paused. You don't owe him any favors, Carly, not after what he did. I exhaled sharply, feeling the weight of it all. I'm going to need to figure out how much this is going to cost us, too. The financial damage, the security breach, all of it. We need a full breakdown. I'll start pulling the numbers together. I'm with you on this, Carly, but think carefully. Pressing charges changes everything. I know. I hung up and set the phone down, feeling the weight of the decision pressing down on me. Just as I started to process the mess I was facing, my phone rang again. It was an unknown number. I hesitated, then answered. This is Carly. Hi, Carly. This is Marcus, a man's voice said on the other end. I bought the car from a guy named Ryan a couple of days ago. I've been contacted by a company representative saying I need to return the vehicle. I'm sorry, I didn't know it was stolen or anything, but I just wanted to check in with you. I nearly dropped the phone. You're the guy who bought it. I could feel my pulse quickening. Look, I'm not trying to get you into trouble, but I need that car back. It was never supposed to be sold. Marcus sounded completely confused. I didn't know it was worth that much. I thought it was just an old car. Ryan told me it was all cleared up, but if there's an issue, I'll return it. I don't want any problems. I softened, realizing how easily Ryan had duped this guy. No problem, Marcus. We'll get everything straightened out. But I need you to return the car as soon as possible. And please, don't make any repairs to it. Just bring it back in the same condition. Of course. I'll get it back to you right away. I ended the call and sat back in my chair, feeling a small measure of relief. At least the car was coming back. But even then, the damage was done. Ryan had taken something worth over $100,000 and sold it for pennies on the dollar. And now I had to decide what to do about it. Press charges or try to negotiate. Whatever I chose, I knew I was walking a fine line. And with my family involved, I wasn't sure I could come out unscathed. The next morning, I made sure my assistant cleared my schedule. I was going to need the time to get through what was coming. Ryan was walking into my office for a reason, and I was going to make sure he understood just how serious this was. The elevator dinged, and I saw Ryan step out, his eyes scanning the sleek lobby as he made his way toward my office. He looked a little out of place in the corporate building, like he had just realized how far removed he was from everything I'd worked to build. The awkwardness was written all over his face as he stepped into my office. Hey, he said, his voice sounding unsure. I didn't know you worked in a place like this. I couldn't help it. I had to bite back a smirk. I wasn't about to play nice. You don't know a lot about what I do, Ryan, I said, keeping my voice level. Take a seat. He shifted uncomfortably, glancing around, clearly taken aback by the size of the office, the modern furnishings, the view of the city. It wasn't what he expected, and it showed. Good. Maybe it would finally hit him that I wasn't just some little sister who needed him to take care of everything. Look, Carly, he started, clearly trying to ease into this. I know you're pissed, but… No, I interrupted, cutting him off. What you did was illegal. You sold a car that didn't belong to you. It wasn't mine, Ryan. It belonged to the company. A high-security, custom modified vehicle that's worth over $100,000. And now, you've committed felony theft. His face froze for a second, eyes widening as it hit him. He hadn't expected me to hit him with the full weight of the situation. It's a company car, he asked, his voice rising with a mix of disbelief and confusion. Come on, it was just sitting there, taking up space. The thing was a rust bucket. I thought you'd be relieved to get rid of it. I could feel my blood pressure rising, the anger bubbling up. I had to control it. I couldn't let him think for 1 second that I was going to let him off easy. You sold a company asset, Ryan, I said, slowly and clearly. That car wasn't just an old vehicle, it was tied into our infrastructure. You sold something that was critical to the security of the entire business. He shifted in his chair, his brow furrowing as he tried to find a way out of this. I didn't know it was that important, he muttered, almost laughing it off. Look, I thought I was doing you a favor. I got rid of it for you. It's not like it was some treasure. I leaned forward, my voice cold now. You didn't ask me. You didn't even tell me. You sold something that wasn't yours to sell, and now you've put everything at risk. financial losses, legal consequences, and let's not forget, security breaches that could have compromised the entire company. That's what you've done. Ryan shifted again, starting to look less sure of himself. Okay, okay, I get it. But he paused, his expression now switching to frustration. But this is blowing up way out of proportion, Carly. It's just a car. You're acting like I sold a house or something. It is a big deal, I snapped back, my patience wearing thin. And you're not getting away with brushing it off. You need to take responsibility for what you've done. You can't just sell something of mine, of the company's, because you think it's a rust bucket. Ryan's face twisted into a frown, and I could see the frustration in his eyes. Look, I didn't think it was that serious. I didn't think I was hurting anyone. He paused, his voice softening, trying to manipulate the moment. I'm sorry. Okay, I'll make it right. I'll pay you back, Carly. Just don't press charges, please. His sudden shift from defensive to pleading caught me off guard for a second, but I didn't let it show. I crossed my arms and leaned back in my chair, staring at him like he was a stranger. You're right about one thing, I said, keeping my voice steady. You did mess up, and you will make it right, but don't expect me to forgive you so easily. Ryan's jaw clenched as he met my gaze, his eyes narrowing in frustration. Come on, Carly. I'm your brother. You can't do this to me? I can, I said, each word deliberate. You've crossed a line here, and it's not just about the car. It's about everything you've ever assumed about me, about the fact that you think you can do whatever you want and I'll just fix it. I'm not fixing this for you. You're going to take responsibility for your actions, and I'm not letting you off the hook this time. Ryan's face reddened. I didn't know it was going to get this far. I just thought. You didn't think, I cut in, shaking my head. You acted without even considering what this would mean. Now you have to live with the consequences. His eyes darted around the room, and for a second, I could see the panic flicker in them. I'll pay you back for the car. I'll get the money, I swear. I'll cover the repairs, everything. Just, please don't go to the police. Please. I could see how desperate he was now, his shoulders slumping, his bravado completely gone. But I didn't feel sorry for him. Not anymore. I'm not forgiving you, Ryan, I said, my voice like ice. I'll decide whether or not to press charges, but don't think I'm doing this for you. You've got to learn a lesson from this. He slumped in his chair, defeated. I don't know what else to say. Then don't say anything else, I replied. You've done enough damage already. Ryan stared at me for a long moment, his eyes searching mine for some sign that I was going to let him off the hook. But there was nothing in me that could do that. Not anymore. He had to face the consequences, whether he liked it or not. Get out, I said, my voice hard, final. I'll let you know what I decide. He hesitated, then stood up, looking at me once more before walking out of my office. I stayed seated, staring at the door long after it closed. My heart was pounding, but I couldn't bring myself to feel relief. Not yet. The hardest part was still to come. I barely had time to collect my thoughts before my phone buzzed again. This time, it was my dad. Hey, Carly, I need to talk to you. Steve's voice came through the speaker, tight with anger. What the hell are you doing? Why are you even considering pressing charges against Ryan? I hadn't expected this call, but I also should have known it was coming. My stomach tightened as I leaned back in my chair, trying to keep my voice even. Dad, I'm not going to let him get away with what he did. He sold a company asset. He broke the law. His voice was sharp, quick. It's just a damn car, Carly. You can't destroy your brother over this. You can't throw him in prison for this. What happened to looking out for each other? Family doesn't just turn on each other over some mistake. I gripped the edge of my desk, my knuckles turning white. This isn't a mistake, Dad. It's theft. He knew exactly what he was doing. He sold something that didn't belong to him. He didn't think about the consequences, and now he has to deal with them. There was a long silence on the other end of the line. When Steve spoke again, his voice was colder. I don't know who you've become, but this isn't you, Carly. You used to care about family. You used to understand that people make mistakes. I let out a short breath, fighting the urge to snap. I still care about family, but that doesn't mean I should let Ryan do whatever he wants. He needs to face the reality of what he's done. Steve's tone softened, though it still carried that sense of impatience. This is ridiculous. You're talking about destroying your brother's life over something like this. I don't even recognize you anymore. I could feel my blood start to boil, but I held my ground. You don't recognize me because you've never understood me. Not really. You never saw me as anything other than the little girl you needed to protect. You think I don't know what I'm doing with my life, but this is my business, Dad. And Ryan violated that trust. He violated me. Steve sighed, and I could hear him rubbing his face through the phone. You've got to stop, Carly. This isn't the way to handle things. But I wasn't going to stop. I wasn't backing down. I'm handling it. This is how it needs to be handled. Ryan has to face the consequences of his actions, or he'll never learn. Before Steve could respond, my phone buzzed again. Beverly. I already knew what was coming. Sweetheart, it's your mother. Beverly's voice cooed from the other end. I could already hear the concern in her tone, the judgment hidden behind her words. I've been talking to Ryan, and I just want to say, you're really overreacting. It's just an old car. It's not worth losing your brother over. I could feel the pressure rising in my chest. Mom, you don't get it, I snapped. It's not just a car. It's company property. It's $100,000. And Ryan sold it without asking me, without thinking about the consequences. She sighed heavily. Carly, honey, you're so wrapped up in this business of yours. You don't see what this is doing to Ryan. He was just trying to help you. He thought it was a favor, and now you're treating him like a criminal. This whole thing is just a misunderstanding. It's not worth all this drama. I shook my head, even though she couldn't see me. It's not a misunderstanding, Mom. It's a crime. Ryan didn't think about the bigger picture. He didn't think about what this could cost. He didn't think about the company or me. He just thought it was some old car he could get rid of. You're blowing this out of proportion, she insisted. Family should be there for each other. This is not the way to handle it. My frustration was starting to spill over, but I was determined to keep it together. Family should be there for each other, yes, but family should also respect each other. And Ryan doesn't respect me. He doesn't respect my work. I've spent years building this business, and every time something like this happens, it's like they think I'm still that little girl they need to fix. Beverly's voice softened, like she was trying to soothe me. Carly, don't be so hard on yourself. You know we love you, right? We just don't want you to make things worse than they already are. I'm not making it worse, Mom, I said, my voice steady now, despite everything. I'm making sure this doesn't happen again. If I don't do something about this, if I just let it slide, Ryan's going to think he can keep doing whatever he wants. He'll think there's no consequence. But this is too much. You're hurting your own brother, she said, the hurt clear in her voice. I'm not the one who hurt him, I snapped. He hurt himself. He's the one who made the decision to sell a car he had no right to touch, and now he has to take responsibility. There was a long silence before Beverly sighed, her tone resigned. I just wish you'd think about what you're doing before you make any more decisions. I love you, Carly, but I think you're making a mistake. Maybe, I said, my voice firm, but I'm not going to pretend that everything is fine just because it's easier for everyone else. Ryan's actions have consequences, and I'm not going to ignore that. You'll need to accept that too. I ended the call without another word. I sat back in my chair, my hands trembling slightly from the weight of the conversation, from the pressure building inside me. This was exactly what I feared. My family, the people who were supposed to understand me, couldn't even see where I was coming from. They couldn't see the way Ryan's actions threatened everything I'd worked for. But I couldn't change that. All I could do now was move forward. Whatever happened with them, with Ryan, this was my business. And I wasn't about to let it fall apart because they didn't get it. I took a deep breath and stared out the window, letting the city skyline calm me for a moment. But deep down, I knew there was no going back now. The hardest decisions had already been made. The following day, I sat in my office, the phone pressed to my ear, as Sarah, my attorney, went over my legal options. I wasn't sure I was ready to make a decision, but it was time to stop avoiding it. Time to face the reality of what I had to do. Carly, if you press charges, Sarah said, her voice calm but clear, Ryan could be looking at jail time. He could face a felony conviction. It's not just about the money, it's about the nature of what he did. He intentionally took something that wasn't his to sell. He could end up with a criminal record. I let her words hang in the air for a moment, trying to process them. A part of me wanted to believe that there was another way, some way to get through this without completely destroying my brother's life. But the other part of me, the part that had spent years building this business, was pissed. He'd crossed a line. And now I had to decide whether to let him off or hold him accountable. I know, I said, my voice tight. But I don't want to send him to prison. That's not what I want. Sarah was quiet for a beat, like she was weighing my words. I get it, Carly. You've got a tough decision ahead, but you also have to protect your business. And sometimes, protecting the business means doing the hard thing, even if it's not what you want to do. You've worked too hard for too long to let him get away with this. I rubbed my temples, my mind spinning. The consequences of pressing charges were huge. And yet, if I let him get away with it, what did that say about me, about everything I'd fought for? I'm not trying to destroy him, Sarah, I said, my voice barely above a whisper, but he has to learn that actions have consequences. I agree, she replied softly, but you have to decide if that consequence is jail time or something else. If you press charges, it might change things permanently. For your brother, for your family. Are you ready for that? The weight of her words hit me hard. Could I really follow through on this? Could I really do that to him? But at the same time, I couldn't let him think he could just walk away from something this big without facing the fallout. I'll figure it out, I said, my voice firmer now. Thanks, Sarah. I hung up and sat there for a long time, staring out the window. The skyline was beautiful, but it didn't help drown out the noise in my head. I'd already made my decision. But the more I thought about it, the more complicated it became. I called Sam in. She knocked softly and stepped in, holding a tablet with all the details I'd asked for. I pulled everything together, Carly, she said, setting the tablet down in front of me. Here's the breakdown of everything. The legal fees, the car recovery, the repairs, and the compensation for the buyer. It's a lot. I skimmed through the numbers, my stomach sinking further with each line. The legal fees alone were astronomical, and that was before factoring in the cost of recovering the car and compensating Marcus. And then there were the repairs. If the car was damaged in any way, the price was going to go up even further. It was a hefty sum. I had to swallow the bitter pill. Ryan had cost the company and me more than just the value of the car. He'd put everything at risk. Sam, I need you to start preparing the documents for restitution, I said, my voice steady, though my mind was racing. I'm not pressing charges yet, but Ryan is going to pay for the damages. All of it. Sam nodded without hesitation. Got it. I'll start drafting the paperwork. You sure about this? I exhaled slowly, nodding. Yeah, I'm sure. It's not about revenge. It's about making things right. Ryan needs to understand that actions have consequences, but I'm not ready to completely sever ties with him. Not yet. Sam paused like she was waiting for something more, but when I didn't say anything else, she left to begin her work. I sat back in my chair, staring at the documents on my desk. The decision was made. It wasn't easy, and it wasn't what I wanted, but it was necessary. I took a deep breath and pulled up Ryan's contact information on my phone. My thumb hovered over his name, and for a second, I wondered if I was doing the right thing. But deep down, I knew. He needed to understand that the world didn't revolve around him, that his actions didn't just affect him. I dialed his number, waiting through the rings. When he finally picked up, I said, "We need to talk." There was a pause, and then I heard him sigh. "Carly, look, I know you're pissed." "You're damn right I'm pissed," I cut in, my voice sharper than I meant it to be. But I wasn't going to sugarcoat this. "You sold the car, Ryan. You stole from me and from the company. And now you're going to pay for the damage you've caused." His voice dropped. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying you're going to pay restitution. All of it. The legal fees, the repairs, the compensation for the buyer. I'm not pressing charges yet, but if you don't take responsibility for this, I will." I could hear the tension on the other end of the line. He knew I wasn't backing down. "I'll pay it," he said, his voice tight, almost defeated. "Just don't send me to jail, Carly." "I'm not sending you to jail, Ryan," I said, my voice more controlled now. "But this isn't going away. You need to make it right, and you need to understand that this is the price for what you did." There was a long silence. Then, "I'll pay it. Just don't make me lose everything." "You're the one who did that," I replied, my voice hard. "But I'll give you a chance to fix it. You've got a year." I hung up the phone, my heart still pounding, but this time with a sense of clarity. The hardest part was over. Now it was just about waiting to see if Ryan would actually follow through. And if he didn't, well, that would be another problem for another day. But for now, I could finally breathe a little easier. The weight of my decision hung on my shoulders as I sat at my desk, staring at the screen, the numbers still fresh in my mind. Ryan hadn't just stolen a car. He'd stolen my trust, and that wasn't something I could get back overnight. But I'd made my choice. I wouldn't send him to jail, but he was going to pay for what he did. He needed to learn, really learn. I took a deep breath and dialed his number, the screen lighting up with his name. The phone rang twice before he picked up. "Carly," Ryan's voice came through, sounding cautious but relieved. "You ready to talk?" "Yeah," I said, keeping my voice calm, controlled. "We're going to talk about what happens next." There was a long pause on the other end. I could practically hear him trying to prepare for what was coming. "Look, I'm sorry for what I did," he said, his voice low, regret seeping through. "I didn't mean to mess things up like this. I really didn't." I rubbed my forehead, the frustration of the past few days still fresh. "I know you're sorry, but that doesn't change what happened. What you did was wrong, Ryan, and it's not just going to go away because you're apologizing." He sighed heavily, almost like he was trying to find the right words. "I get it. I messed up. I'll pay you back for everything. Just please don't send me to jail. I'll do anything, Carly." I let the silence stretch out before I spoke again. "I'm not pressing charges, Ryan, but you're going to have to pay the full amount for the recovery costs, repairs, and compensation to the buyer. I'll give you a year to pay it back, but it has to be done in full. No exceptions. This is what happens when you cross a line." There was a brief, shocked pause on the other end. "A year," he echoed, sounding relieved but still uncertain. "A year's not so bad. I can do that. I'll find a way." "Good," I said, my voice hardening slightly. "But that's not all. You're going to go to therapy. You need to figure out why you thought it was okay to take something that wasn't yours, sell it, and act like there wouldn't be any consequences. I don't know what's going on in your head, but I'm not letting you off without addressing it." There was another silence, and I could hear him shift uncomfortably. "Therapy? Seriously?" "Yeah, seriously," I said, my tone firm. "You're not just going to pay money and walk away from this. You need to understand why you did it in the first place. You can't keep treating people like this, like their work or their belongings don't matter." "I don't know, Carly. I don't think I need therapy," he muttered, his voice defensive. "I just made a stupid decision." "Then why'd you make it?" I asked, not backing down. "If it was just a stupid decision, why don't you see it for what it is? You're avoiding the real problem, and I'm not letting you sweep this under the rug." "I'll go," he said, almost grudgingly. "I'll go to therapy. Okay, I'll do whatever it takes to make it right. I just don't want you to hate me." I exhaled slowly, trying to steady myself. "I'm not doing this to punish you, Ryan. I'm doing this because you need to learn, and I need to know you understand the gravity of what you've done." There was a long pause before he spoke again. "I won't let you down, Carly. I swear. I'll make this right. Just don't press charges, please." I felt a pang of something. Relief, maybe. Or maybe just exhaustion. "I'm not pressing charges, but this is your chance to fix things. This is it, Ryan." "I get it," he said, sounding smaller now. "Thanks for giving me that chance." "You'll have to earn it," I replied, my voice steady. "And this isn't forgiveness. It's just me not destroying your life. You'll make it right. You owe that much." I hung up the phone, my heart still heavy, but a little lighter than it had been. There was relief in knowing I wouldn't completely destroy him, but a nagging feeling still lingered in my gut. I had given him a chance, but that didn't mean everything would be fine. I didn't expect him to change overnight. In fact, I knew it would take time, but I had to believe that if he was going to change, if there was any hope of him growing up, this was the only way. The hardest thing I'd ever done was to give him this chance, and yet the hardest part still lay ahead. He had to prove himself, and he had to do it on his own. I leaned back in my chair, staring out the window. The city below was as busy as ever, people moving in every direction. It was strange, how life just kept moving, whether you were ready for it or not. I wasn't sure what would come next, but I knew one thing. I was done letting other people decide how my life would go. Not my brother, not my parents, not anyone. This was my call, and I was standing by it. A few months from now, maybe even a year, I'd know if Ryan really changed. But for now, I could only hope that he'd learned enough to never make the same mistake again. A few weeks later, we gathered at my parents' house for Jane's birthday dinner. It was supposed to be a light evening, just family, cake, and the usual chaos. But as soon as I walked through the door, I could feel the tension hanging in the air. Ryan was already there, but he kept his distance, sitting off to the side, his eyes flicking to me every now and then, but never meeting mine. He was still trying to figure out what to say, I could tell. I didn't blame him. I hadn't exactly made it easy on him. At first, everything felt awkward, like I was walking into an old version of my family, one that didn't quite know how to accept me. Dad was standing by the counter, poking at a bowl of chips like he was nervous. Mom was hovering near the oven, checking the roast, while Jane bounced around, excited about the food and the presents she had yet to open. But there was a shift in the air, something different. It wasn't just the usual chatter and the easy dismissals. Then Dad surprised me. "I need to talk to you, Carly," he said, his voice quieter than usual. He motioned for me to step away from the group, pulling me aside near the back door. The smell of garlic and roast beef lingered in the air as we stepped outside onto the porch. "I owe you an apology," he said, his voice thick. "I've been hard on you. Too hard. I should have been supporting you instead of second-guessing every decision you made. You've built something real, Carly. You've worked your ass off, and I didn't always see that. I'm sorry." I wasn't sure how to respond at first. For years, I'd felt like I was constantly fighting for my family to take me seriously. But now, with my dad standing in front of me, admitting that he'd been wrong, it was hard to know where to go with it. "Thanks," I said, keeping it simple. His apology was nice, but it didn't erase the years of condescension, the comments about how I could have done better or should have done this or that. But it was a start. "I should have been proud of what you've accomplished," he added, his voice softer now. "You've done things I could never do, and I see that now." I nodded, though the words didn't quite settle in the way I wanted them to. I wasn't sure if I could just forgive everything with a simple apology. Not yet. Before I could say anything else, Jane appeared, pulling me into a tight hug. "Hey," she said, her voice quiet, but there was a certain gratitude in it. "I know things have been weird with all of us, but I just wanted to thank you for giving us a chance to make things right, for not shutting us out completely." I hugged her back, my arms tight around her small frame. Jane was the one who always tried to keep the peace. She never picked sides, at least not openly, but I knew she felt the strain too. "You don't have to thank me," I said, pulling back to look at her. "I'm just trying to do what's best for all of us, even if it's messy." "I know," she said with a smile, a little teary-eyed. I think things are starting to get better." I wasn't sure if I agreed with that completely, but I didn't say anything. I just nodded, letting the moment pass. As much as I wanted everything to be okay, there was still a part of me that wasn't ready to trust that it would be. It was too soon. The night went on, the tension slowly easing, but there was still that quiet undercurrent, something unresolved. Ryan stayed mostly quiet, his eyes avoiding mine when he wasn't looking down at his plate. He hadn't said much since our conversation, and part of me wondered if that was because he was still processing everything, or if he just didn't know how to make things right. I could feel my mind drifting back to the work I'd been doing, the projects I had yet to finish. My hands itched to be back in the office, making decisions that actually mattered. And as the evening wore on, I couldn't help but feel like I'd come a long way from the person I used to be. I'd learned to stop apologizing for my ambition. I'd learned to stop shrinking myself to fit into a version of me that everyone else could understand. The truth was, the only person who needed to understand my choices was me. And as much as I wished my family could fully grasp what I'd done, I knew I couldn't change their perceptions overnight. The most I could do was let them catch up. In time, I hoped they would. For now, though, I had to keep moving forward. The journey was mine to finish, no one else's, and that, for once, felt like enough. As I looked around the table at my family, still a little fractured, still figuring out how to coexist, I knew things weren't perfect. They might never be. But I also knew I'd finally stepped into the person I was meant to be. No matter what they thought, and maybe, just maybe, that was enough to start building a new kind of family, one that saw me as I was, not as they wanted me to be.